Julie Bennett thought the worst thing about her final pizza delivery was going to be the lack of a tip. Then Diego Esposito opened the penthouse door, looked straight past the pizza in her hands, and went completely still. His attention had landed on the silver necklace around her neck. "Where did you get that?" Julie instinctively covered the pendant. "Why?" Diego asked again, and this time there was something in his voice that made her stop smiling. "Where did you get that necklace?" What Julie told him next would unravel a secret his family had buried for 21 years, and turn an ordinary delivery into the most dangerous night of her life. But before we hear her answer, comment your favorite pizza toppings, and also tell me where you're watching from. I want to see how far Julie and Diego's story travels. Because Diego knew that necklace. He just didn't understand how the woman wearing it could possibly be alive. It was 12:17 a.m., and Julie's feet hurt. She'd been delivering pizzas since 6, navigating Chicago's grid through rain that had turned from inconvenient to personally offensive around hour 3. Her car made the expensive noise every time she turned left. Her manager had sent her a text reminding staff that tomorrow's meeting was mandatory and unpaid. And now she stood outside a penthouse that probably had better security than most embassies, holding 4 large pizzas, and wondering if rich people tipped proportionally or ironically. The elevator ride up had been long enough for her to mentally calculate what percentage of the order total would justify being awake. The man who opened the door looked like he'd never justified anything to anyone in his life. Tall, dark-haired, maybe mid-30s, wearing a shirt that cost more than her semester's textbooks. His expression suggested he was expecting someone considerably more threatening than a delivery driver with marinara sauce on her sleeve. "Pizza," Julie said, because stating the obvious had gotten her through worse situations. "I didn't order pizza." Julie checked her phone. Correct address. Large order. Prepaid, which meant the tip was theoretical at best. Penthouse C? Yes. Then someone ordered pizza. Diego's gaze moved past her toward the elevator, then back. "Who sent you?" "Technically my manager. Philosophically, student loans." Julie shifted the boxes slightly. "Do you want these or not?" "No." "Great. I still need you to confirm the order was received so I can close out my shift." Diego's attention had moved from her face to somewhere just below her collar, and Julie became aware that her necklace had slipped free from her uniform during the elevator ride. She reached up to tuck it back. Diego's hand moved faster, not grabbing, but catching her wrist with enough pressure to stop the motion completely. "Don't," he said quietly. Julie's pulse kicked up. The hallway was empty. The elevator was gone. And the man currently holding her wrist looked like he knew several efficient ways to make people disappear. "I'm going to need you to let go," Julie said, keeping her voice level. Diego released her immediately, but didn't step back. "May I see that?" "The necklace?" "Yes." "No, actually." His eyes lifted to hers, dark, cold, and currently calculating something Julie had no context for. Then he asked the question that would dismantle everything Julie thought she knew about her mother. "Where did you get that necklace?" Julie's hand closed protectively around the pendant. It was small, silver, shaped like an 8-point star with a tiny blue stone set in the center. Her mother had given it to her 7 months ago, shortly before entering hospice. "My mom," Julie said carefully. "Why?" "Her name." The shift from question to command was immediate enough that Julie answered before thinking better of it. "Claire Bennett." Diego went very still, in a way that was somehow worse than movement. "When did she die?" Julie's stomach dropped. "How did you?" "When?" 7 months ago. February. She pulled her wrist back fully, clutching the pizza boxes like a very inadequate shield. "Who are you?" "Diego Esposito." The name meant nothing to Julie, but the way he said it suggested it should have. "And you knew my mother?" "No." Diego's expression hadn't changed, but something behind it had gone cold and distant. "I knew a woman who wore that necklace. Her name was Sofia Carbone. She died 21 years ago. Julie opened her mouth to say that was impossible, that her mother had been Claire Bennett, that she'd grown up in Indiana and worked as a medical transcriptionist and died of pancreatic cancer in a hospice facility where Julie had held her hand. She didn't get the chance. Somewhere below them, glass shattered. Diego's head snapped toward the sound, and Julie saw his expression shift from suspicion to something that looked like recognition. "Inside," he said. "Now." "I'm not." A bullet destroyed part of the doorframe beside Julie's head. Her hearing went strange. The pizza boxes hit the floor, and Diego's hand closed around her arm, pulling her through the doorway as more gunfire erupted from the stairwell she hadn't noticed. The penthouse door slammed shut behind them. Julie's back hit an expensive-looking wall, and she stared at Diego with the dawning realization that the worst thing about her final delivery wasn't going to be the tip at all. "You have approximately 10 seconds, Diego said, his voice terrifyingly calm, "to explain who sent you here. Nobody sent me. I deliver pizza." The order was placed using stolen customer credentials. The routing was deliberate, and you're wearing a necklace that belonged to a dead woman. His gaze pinned her in place. "So I'll ask again. Who sent you?" Julie's hands were shaking. "I don't know what you're talking about." More gunfire. Closer this time. Diego pulled a phone from his pocket, pressed something, and spoke without looking away from Julie. "Secure the floor. We have an active breach." Then his attention returned to her, and Julie understood with absolute clarity that she'd just walked into something considerably more dangerous than a wrong delivery address. "My mother's name was Claire Bennett," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I've never heard of Sofia Carbone, and if you don't let me leave right now, I'm calling the police." Diego's expression didn't change. "You're already involved. Calling the police won't fix that." "Involved in what?" "That," Diego said quietly, "is what we're going to find out." The penthouse had a safe corridor. Julie discovered this when Diego pulled her through what looked like a decorative panel and into a hallway that definitely hadn't appeared in any luxury living magazine. Concrete walls, reinforced doors, and lighting that suggested function over aesthetics. "Stay behind me," Diego said. "I wasn't planning to lead." He moved forward, with the kind of efficiency that suggested this wasn't his first active breach, and Julie followed because the alternative was staying in a hallway where people were apparently shooting at penthouses. Her brain was doing something unhelpful, where it kept trying to process the last 3 minutes in order, but the order didn't make sense. Pizza delivery, necklace, gunfire, safe corridor. None of those things belonged in the same sequence. They reached a reinforced door. Diego opened it to reveal 3 men. 1 on the floor, 2 standing. The one on the floor was bleeding from his shoulder and breathing in a way that made Julie's respiratory training kick in before conscious thought could interfere. She dropped to her knees beside him. "Don't move him," she said to the standing guard who'd been about to do exactly that. "His breathing's compromised. If you shift him wrong, you'll collapse the lung completely." The guard looked at Diego. Diego looked at Julie. "You're a doctor?" "Respiratory therapist. In training. Mostly." She checked the guard's airway, keeping her hands as steady as her voice wasn't. "He needs an ambulance." "Already coming." Diego crouched beside her. "What do you need?" "Something to stabilize his position. He's trying to compensate for decreased lung capacity by shifting his weight, but that's making the shoulder worse." One of the standing guards produced a tactical bag. Julie found what she needed and worked with hands that shook less once they had a task. The injured man, Marco, according to the name someone used, watched her with the kind of focus that suggested he was using consciousness as a competitive sport. "You're doing fine," Julie told him. "Keep breathing exactly like that." "Trying," Marco managed. By the time the medical team arrived 4 minutes later, Marco's breathing had stabilized and Julie's adrenaline had transformed into something that felt like nausea with ambition. She stood, stepped back, and watched professionals take over. Diego appeared beside her, holding a bottle of water. "You can stop pretending you're fine," he said quietly. "I wasn't. You were." Julie took the water, because her hands needed something to hold that wasn't a gunshot victim. "What just happened?" "Someone tried to kill you. They were shooting at your penthouse. You were standing in it." Julie drank half the water in one go, then looked at Diego directly. "Why does my necklace matter?" Diego's expression remained unreadable. "Because the woman who wore it 21 years ago worked for my family. She stole evidence, helped orchestrate my kidnapping, and disappeared before anyone could stop her. We were told she died shortly after." "That's not—" Julie stopped. "My mother didn't kidnap anyone. Sofia Carbone did. My mother was Claire Bennett. She worked in medical transcription. She lived in Indiana. She died of pancreatic cancer." Julie heard her voice rising and didn't care. She wasn't some criminal who— "Then explain the necklace." Julie couldn't. She looked down at the pendant still hanging around her neck, the 8-point star catching fluorescent light, and tried to reconcile the woman who'd raised her with the person Diego was describing. It didn't fit. Except the necklace was real, and Diego's recognition had been immediate. "I need to go home," Julie said. "Your home isn't safe. You don't know that." Diego pulled out his phone, tapped something, and turned the screen toward her. The image showed Julie's apartment door, standing open. Inside, visible even through the security camera's angle, her belongings had been destroyed with the kind of thoroughness that suggested someone had been searching rather than robbing. Julie's hands went cold. "They're looking for whatever Sofia protected," Diego said, "and they think you have it." "I don't have anything. I don't even know who Sofia is." "Was. And you're wearing her necklace, which means someone connected you to her." He pocketed the phone. "The delivery tonight wasn't a coincidence. Someone routed you here deliberately." Julie thought about the order, the prepaid status, the specific address that had seemed odd, but not impossible. "Why?" she asked. "I don't know yet. But until I do, you're staying here. You can't just—" "I'm not kidnapping you," Diego interrupted. "I'm offering protection from people who just destroyed your apartment and shot at my penthouse. You can refuse, but refusing means going back to a compromised address with no security, while whoever orchestrated tonight's events continues looking for you." He wasn't wrong. Julie hated that he wasn't wrong. "How long?" she asked. "Until we understand what's happening." "That's not a timeline. It's the truth." Marco was being moved onto a transport gurney. One of the guards was coordinating with building security, and Julie was standing in a safe corridor with a man who thought her mother had been a criminal, wearing a necklace that had somehow turned a pizza delivery into an active crime scene. "Okay," Julie said finally, "but I need to call my school, and my manager, and—" "You'll have access to everything you need," Diego said, "except leaving. That's called kidnapping. That's called staying alive." Julie looked at him, this cold, controlled man who'd recognized her mother's necklace and pulled her out of gunfire without hesitation, and wondered what kind of person could do both. "You said Sofia helped kidnap you," Julie said carefully. "When?" 21 years ago. I was 15. And you think my mother—" "I think," Diego said quietly, "that the woman I knew as Sofia Carbone saved my life before she disappeared. Then my father spent years telling me she'd been part of the conspiracy that nearly killed me. I don't know which version was true, but if she became Claire Bennett and raised you, maybe neither story is complete." Julie touched the necklace again. Her mother had given it to her with specific instructions. "Keep it." Not, "It's valuable." Not, "It belonged to your grandmother." Just, "Keep it." "If I stay," Julie said slowly, "you tell me everything you know about Sofia Carbone." Diego's expression shifted slightly. Not quite agreement, not quite refusal. "Yes," he said finally, "and you don't lie to me, even if you think the truth is dangerous. That's not a promise I can make." At least he was honest about it. Julie looked back toward the main penthouse, where 4 pizzas were probably still scattered across expensive flooring, and made a decision that felt inevitable and terrible in equal measure. "Then we're going to have problems," she said. "But I'll stay anyway." Diego's mouth almost moved toward something that might have been a smile. "Good," he said. "Now let's figure out who your mother really was." The penthouse study looked designed to intimidate people into settlements. Julie sat in a leather chair that probably cost more than her car, and watched Diego retrieve a file from a locked cabinet. "You live here alone?" she asked. "Yes. It's very clean. I have staff." Diego set the file on the desk and opened it to reveal a photograph that made Julie's breath catch. Her mother stared back at her. Younger, maybe late 20s, but unmistakably Claire. Same eyes, same mouth, same way of holding her shoulders, like she was bracing for something. She stood beside a teenage boy who looked furious about having his picture taken. "That's you," Julie said. 15, 3 days before the kidnapping. Diego's voice was carefully neutral. Sofia took it during a family gathering. Julie reached for the photograph, then stopped. "May I?" Diego slid it across the desk. She picked it up carefully, studying details she'd never seen in any photo her mother had kept. Claire had always claimed most of her early pictures were lost in a flood. Now Julie wondered what else she'd never questioned. "She wore the necklace constantly," Diego said. "I asked about it once. She said it had been her mother's. She told me the same thing. Was it true?" Julie set the photograph down. "I don't know. I never met my grandmother. Mom said she died before I was born. Convenient. Or just sad. Not everything is a conspiracy. In my experience, most things are." "That's depressing. It's functional." Julie returned her attention to the photograph. Young Diego looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Her mother looked like she was trying not to laugh. "What was she like?" Julie asked quietly. Diego was silent for a moment. "Smart. Stubborn. She carried peppermints because she hated my father's cigars but wouldn't tell him directly." He paused. "She slapped me once for calling a waiter stupid. Told me cruelty toward people who couldn't fight back was the behavior of small men." Julie could picture it perfectly. Her mother had that exact tone, the one that made disappointment worse than anger. "She cheated at cards," Diego continued. "Badly. Everyone knew. She'd act offended if you accused her. Something that might have been warmth crossed his face. And she was the first adult who told me becoming my father wasn't inevitable." "Did you believe her?" "Eventually." Julie tried to reconcile the cold man who'd pulled her into his penthouse with the teenager who'd apparently needed someone to tell him he had choices. "You said she helped kidnap you," Julie said carefully. "But you also said she saved your life. Which was it?" "I don't know. For years, I believed my father's version, that Sofia had been part of the conspiracy and only rescued me when the plan failed." Diego's gaze remained steady. "But if she survived long enough to become Claire Bennett and raise you, maybe I was wrong." Diego opened the file further, revealing financial records and organizational charts. "Sofia was a forensic accountant," he said. "She worked for my family's legitimate businesses, but had access to everything. 3 weeks before the kidnapping, she started asking questions about irregular transfers, money laundering, among other things. Someone was stealing from the organization and using the funds to destabilize relationships with rivals. Sofia found the pattern." He indicated a highlighted section. "The kidnapping was meant to eliminate me and create chaos. Sofia discovered where I was being held and got me out. Then she vanished." Julie looked at the photograph again, at her mother's face, and felt grief and confusion twist together. "She never told me any of this," Julie said quietly. "Not even at the end. She just gave me the necklace and said to keep it. Maybe she thought the truth was more dangerous than ignorance. Or maybe she thought I couldn't handle it." Julie's voice came out sharper than intended. Either way, she lied about everything. Diego didn't offer comfort. He simply watched her. "What do you need?" he asked finally. "Answers." Julie pulled the file closer. "Can I see the rest?" Diego hesitated. "You said you'd tell me everything you know about Sofia," Julie reminded him. "That includes this." After a long moment, he slid the file toward her. Julie began reading about a woman named Sofia Carbone, who'd lived an entire life before deciding to disappear. Her mother, a stranger, both. An hour later, Julie's phone buzzed with a text from her manager. "Where are you? You didn't close out your delivery." Julie thought about explaining the gunfire and conspiracy files, then decided some conversations weren't meant for text. "Family emergency. I'll call tomorrow." She looked up to find Diego watching her. "Problem? Just my normal life wondering where I went. You can contact whoever you need to, but don't mention where you are." "I wasn't planning to text about the active gunfire." Julie returned to the file. Halfway through the financial records, her eyes caught on initials that appeared repeatedly in Sofia's notes. "RM. Who's RM?" she asked. Diego's expression shifted slightly. "I don't know." Sofia referenced them multiple times, but never wrote the full name. "Could it be someone in your organization?" "Possibly. So we need more information," Julie said. "Which means what? We wait until whoever destroyed my apartment tries again?" "No. It means we find out what Sofia was protecting and whether she left anything that explains why people are still looking for it 21 years later." Julie touched the necklace again, feeling its familiar weight. Her mother had worn this. Sofia had worn it before that. Maybe they were the same person. Maybe Julie had never really known her mother at all. "Okay," Julie said quietly. "Then let's figure out what she left behind." Diego nodded once, and Julie understood that whatever came next, she'd just committed to seeing it through. Even if the truth turned out to be worse than the mystery. Julie discovered the pendant opened by accident. She'd been turning it absently while reading through Sofia's financial notes, a nervous habit she'd developed during her mother's illness, when her thumbnail caught the edge of the star pattern. The medallion split along a seam she'd never noticed. "Diego." He looked up from the laptop, where he'd been cross-referencing names from Sofia's records. Julie held up the opened pendant. Inside, engraved in tiny, precise letters, was a sequence, B314. Diego crossed to her side of the desk and took the necklace carefully. He studied the inscription for a long moment, then pulled out his phone and photographed it. "You recognize it," Julie said. "Possibly." Sofia's accounting firm used a private banking system for certain clients. The letter designations matched specific institutions. He enlarged the photo. B was Berlinger and Associates. They handled secure storage for high-net-worth individuals who valued discretion over convenience. "So this is a safe deposit box number?" "If the firm still exists." It took Diego 4 phone calls and 15 minutes to confirm that Berlinger and Associates had been acquired twice, but maintained legacy storage accounts for a substantial fee. Box B314 was still active. Annual payments had been made automatically from an account registered to Claire Bennett. Julie's chest tightened. My mother paid for it? For 21 years, apparently. She was protecting something. Or hiding it, Diego said. The question is whether we can access it without triggering attention from whoever's been looking for you. Julie thought about the destroyed apartment, the gunfire, the fact that someone had deliberately sent her to Diego's penthouse. They already know I exist, she said. Hiding doesn't seem like it's working. No, but approaching the bank openly tells them exactly where to find you. So what do we do? Diego made another call, this one brief and in Italian. When he finished, he looked at Julie with an expression that suggested he was calculating acceptable risk. We go tomorrow morning, he said, early enough that most of my organization won't know where I am. You'll have security, but they'll stay outside visual range. You don't trust your own people. I trust them to follow orders. I don't trust that everyone giving orders has my interests in mind. It was the first time Diego had acknowledged that the threat might be internal, and Julie filed that information away for later. "What do I need to bring?" she asked. "Identification, the necklace, and a story about why Claire Bennett's daughter is suddenly interested in a box that's been untouched for 2 decades. The truth? Absolutely not." They left the penthouse at 6:40 a.m. Julie had slept badly in a guest room that was larger than her entire apartment, and she'd woken to find clothes in her size hanging in the closet. Simple, expensive, nothing she would have chosen but everything that fit. She didn't ask how Diego had managed it overnight. The car was black, understated, and probably armored based on how solidly the door closed. Diego drove himself, which surprised her. "No chauffeur?" Julie asked as they merged into morning traffic. "Not today." Trust issues? Survival instincts. They drove in silence for several blocks. Julie watched Chicago wake up around them. Commuters, delivery trucks, the ordinary machinery of a city that had no idea a dead accountant's secrets were about to resurface. "You're nervous," Diego said. "I'm sitting in a car with a man I met 12 hours ago, heading to open a safe deposit box my supposedly dead mother maintained for 2 decades. Nervous seems reasonable." "It is. That wasn't reassurance." "You didn't ask for reassurance. You made an observation." Julie looked at him. "Do you ever just say comforting things?" "No." "Why not?" "Because comfort that isn't true is just a different kind of lie." Julie couldn't actually argue with that, which was irritating. They were 4 blocks from the bank when Julie saw him. A man standing outside a coffee shop, watching traffic with the kind of focused casualness that meant he was looking for something specific. He was ordinary, middle-aged, dark jacket, forgettable except for one detail. His left hand rested on the coffee cup, and his little finger was crooked. Healed badly from an old break, bent at an angle fingers weren't supposed to achieve. Julie had seen that hand before. Last night, outside her pizza shop, she'd noticed a customer waiting near the entrance. She'd assumed he was meeting someone. She'd registered the crooked finger because it had been distinctive enough to catch her attention while she was loading the car. Now he was here, 4 blocks from the bank, watching. "Diego," Julie said quietly. "Don't react." But the man outside the coffee shop, dark jacket, crooked little finger on his left hand. "He was outside my work last night." Diego's expression didn't change, but his hands shifted slightly on the steering wheel. "You're certain?" "Yes, the finger's distinctive. I noticed it while loading deliveries." "Good memory. I deliver to a lot of addresses." "You learn to notice details." Diego made a turn that took them away from the bank, smooth enough that it looked like ordinary navigation. "Describe him." Julie did, keeping her voice level despite the fact that her pulse was doing something unpleasant. "Nico Serrano," Diego said after a moment. "Contract enforcer. Works for whoever pays him, but he's been associated with several families over the years." "Including yours?" "Occasionally." "So someone hired him to follow me, or to follow the necklace." Diego pulled into a parking garage 3 blocks from their original destination, which means approaching the bank directly would have put you directly into his hands. Julie's stomach dropped. "What do we do?" "We confirm whether he's alone or part of a team. Then we decide whether retrieving the box is worth the risk. And if it's not?" Diego looked at her directly. "Then we find another way to get answers. But we don't walk into an obvious trap just because your mother left you a box number." Julie touched the necklace beneath her shirt. 21 years, her mother had protected whatever was in that box. She'd paid for it quietly, consistently, while building an entirely different life as Claire Bennett. Whatever was inside mattered. "I want to know what she left," Julie said. "Even if it's dangerous?" "She gave me this necklace for a reason. I need to know what that reason was." Diego studied her for a moment, then pulled out his phone and made a call in Italian that involved several terse instructions and at least one word Julie was fairly certain meant careful. When he finished, he looked at her again. "We'll get the box," he said, "but not the way they're expecting." Julie didn't ask what that meant. She was starting to understand that Diego's plans worked better when he didn't explain them in advance. They entered the bank through a service entrance Diego's contact had arranged. Julie followed a security manager named Patricia through hallways that smelled like old paper and institutional carpet, acutely aware that somewhere outside, Nico Serrano was probably still watching the main entrance. "Your mother was a valued client," Patricia said as she led them down a flight of stairs. "The account has been maintained flawlessly for over 2 decades. She was thorough," Julie said, which felt like the understatement of her life. Patricia unlocked a heavy door and gestured them into a room lined with numbered boxes. She located B314, inserted her key, and waited for Julie to use the second key Diego had somehow procured during the 20-minute window between identifying the bank and arriving. Julie didn't ask where he'd gotten it. The box slid free. Patricia excused herself with professional discretion, and Julie was left standing in a climate-controlled vault with a metal container that represented everything her mother had hidden. "Do you want privacy?" Diego asked. Julie almost said yes. Then she remembered that whatever was inside involved him too, involved a 15-year-old boy who'd been kidnapped and a woman who'd saved him before disappearing. "No," she said. "Stay." She opened the box. Inside was a letter, a photograph, and a slim folder of documents. Julie reached for the letter first. Her mother's handwriting covered 2 pages, familiar loops and crosses that Julie had seen on birthday cards and grocery lists, and the final note Claire had left beside her hospital bed. "My dearest Julie, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've found the necklace's secret. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you the truth while I was alive. I told myself it was to protect you, but maybe I was just protecting myself from having to explain who I used to be. My name was Sofia Carbone, before it was Claire Bennett. I worked as a forensic accountant for a family that operated in spaces between legal and criminal, and I was good at my work. Too good. I found evidence of theft and conspiracy, and I found a boy who was going to die because of it. I got him out. Then I ran, because staying would have meant dying, and I wasn't ready to die yet. I never regretted leaving that life. I never regretted becoming your mother. Those are the 2 truths I need you to believe. The documents in this box show who was stealing and why. I kept them because I thought someday the truth might matter more than my safety. If you're reading this, maybe it does. If Diego Esposito is still alive when you find this, tell him I was sorry I couldn't take him with me. Tell him his father lied about what happened, and tell him that the person he trusted most was the one who betrayed him. I love you. I'm sorry I couldn't be both women at once. Mom." Julie's vision blurred. She read the letter twice more, her mother's words reshaping everything she thought she'd known, and felt grief and anger and loss tangled together in her chest. Diego stood quietly beside her, not offering comfort, just presence. When Julie finally looked up, she found his expression carefully controlled, but something behind it had shifted. "She didn't betray you," Julie said, her voice rough. "No, your father lied, or believed what he was told." Diego's tone was neutral, but Julie heard the weight beneath it. "Either way, Sofia saved my life, and I spent 21 years thinking she'd been part of trying to end it." Julie set the letter down and reached for the photograph. It showed a younger Sofia, laughing, vibrant, wearing the necklace, standing beside a serious-looking man in his late 50s. "Your father?" Julie asked. "Yes." The third person in the photograph was partially visible, turned away from the camera, but distinctive enough that Julie could make out details. A man, older than Diego, wearing a ring with an unusual crest. Diego went very still. "What?" Julie asked. "The ring," he pointed. "That's a family counselor designation. Only senior advisors wear them." So? So there were only 3 people who held that position 21 years ago. Diego pulled out his phone and enlarged the image. 1 died, 1 retired to Sicily, and 1 is still active in my organization. Who? Rafael Moretti. The name meant nothing to Julie, but Diego's expression suggested it meant everything. RM, Julie said slowly, remembering the initials from Sophia's notes. Yes. Julie reached for the folder. Inside were copies of financial records, transfer authorizations, and communications that even Julie's limited understanding recognized as damning. Rafael Moretti had been systematically stealing from the Esposito organization for years. He'd orchestrated conflicts with rival families to cover the theft. And according to Sophia's annotations, he'd arranged Diego's kidnapping to create enough chaos that his financial crimes would be buried in the aftermath. She had proof, Julie said. She had everything. Diego was reading through the documents with focused intensity. Enough to destroy him. Enough to expose everyone who'd helped him. So why didn't she use it? Because using it would have required staying. And staying would have required dying. Diego looked at her. She chose survival instead. Julie thought about her mother, about Claire Bennett, who'd worked quietly in medical transcription, who'd raised her daughter in Indiana, who'd never once mentioned organized crime, or stolen evidence, or the boy she'd saved. She chose me, Julie said quietly. Yes. They stood together in the vault, surrounded by 21 years of hidden truth, and Julie understood that her mother had built an entire life as protection against this moment. But the moment had come anyway. What happens now? Julie asked. Diego began photographing documents with methodical precision. Now we confirm whether Rafael knows you exist, whether he's the one who sent you to my penthouse, and whether he's desperate enough to eliminate both of us to protect himself. And if he is. Diego's expression went cold in a way that reminded Julie exactly who she was standing beside. Then, I deal with him, he said quietly. The way I should have years ago if I'd known the truth. Julie looked at the letter again, at her mother's handwriting, at the apology that had waited 2 decades to be read. Tell him that the person he trusted most was the one who betrayed him. Rafael Moretti, the man Diego had apparently known since childhood. The man who'd tried to kill him at 15 and had somehow remained close enough to try again. Diego, Julie said carefully, if Rafael's been in your organization this whole time, he knows we're looking. He knows about the necklace. He probably knows we're here right now. I know. So walking out of this bank is dangerous, Diego finished. Yes. Which is why we're not using the entrance we came through. He made a phone call. Brief, in Italian, too fast for Julie to follow, then looked at her with an expression that suggested the easy part was over. Stay close, he said, and if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? Julie nodded, though they both knew she had no idea where she'd run to. Diego collected the documents, returned the empty box to its slot, and guided Julie toward a door she hadn't noticed, one that led deeper into the building rather than out. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere Rafael won't expect. That's not very specific. It's not meant to be. They moved through narrow corridors and past security checkpoints that Diego navigated with the ease of someone who'd planned multiple exit strategies before entering. Julie followed, her mother's letter folded in her pocket, and wondered when exactly her life had transformed from ordinary to something she didn't have vocabulary for. Somewhere above them, morning traffic continued. Somewhere outside, Nico Serrano was probably still watching. And somewhere in Diego's organization, a man named Rafael Moretti was discovering that the evidence he'd thought buried 21 years ago had just resurfaced in the hands of the 2 people most dangerous to him. The boy he'd tried to kill, and the daughter of the woman who'd escaped him. The safe house wasn't what Julie expected. She'd been imagining something industrial, concrete walls, minimal furniture, the kind of place where people waited for danger to pass. Instead, Diego brought her to a brownstone in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of building where someone's grandmother probably baked cookies on Sundays. "This is a safe house?" Julie asked as they entered. "It's registered to a shell company, 3 layers removed from my name. Raphael doesn't know it exists. How many properties do you own that your own organization doesn't know about?" Enough. The interior was furnished simply but comfortably. Diego moved through it with familiarity, checking locks and windows with practiced efficiency. Julie sank onto the sofa and felt exhaustion hit her all at once. She'd been awake for over 24 hours. She'd been shot at, learned her mother had a secret identity, and discovered evidence of a conspiracy that had apparently been waiting 2 decades to surface. Her brain was doing something unhelpful where it kept trying to process everything in order, but the order didn't make sense. "You should sleep," Diego said. "I should call my school, and my landlord, and figure out what I'm supposed to do about the rest of my actual life. Tomorrow. You can't just pause reality because it's inconvenient. I can, for the next 8 hours." Diego disappeared into the kitchen, and Julie heard cabinets opening. She followed, because sitting alone with her thoughts seemed worse than whatever he was doing. She found him staring into a refrigerator that contained eggs, butter, and what might have been vegetables in a previous life. "When was the last time you were here?" Julie asked. 4 months. That explains the science experiment. Diego removed the eggs and butter, ignoring the vegetables entirely. He located a pan, set it on the stove, and proceeded to crack eggs with the confidence of someone who'd watched other people cook often enough to believe he understood the concept. Julie watched him add butter to a cold pan. "You're supposed to heat it first," she said. "The pan?" "Yes." Diego adjusted the heat, then stood looking at the eggs, as though waiting for them to provide instructions. "Do you cook?" Julie asked. "No." "Do you own restaurants?" 7. "And nobody thought this was a conflict of interest?" Diego gave her a look that might have been annoyance or amusement. With him, it was genuinely difficult to tell. "I employ people who cook," he said. Clearly a sound strategy. Julie moved beside him, took the spatula from his hand, and salvaged what she could of the eggs. They ate standing at the counter. Scrambled eggs that were mediocre at best but felt impossibly normal, given everything else happening. "Your mother taught you to cook," Diego observed. "Yes," she said, self-sufficiency was the most practical skill anyone could learn. Julie paused. Of course, she also had a secret identity and evidence of organized crime in a safe deposit box, so maybe her life advice had some gaps. "She kept you safe for 27 years. By lying. By protecting you from information that would have made you a target." Diego set down his fork. "She could have used those documents, sold them, leveraged them, destroyed Raphael years ago. She didn't. She chose you instead." Julie's throat tightened. "I know. That's what makes it so hard to be angry at her. You're allowed to be both, grateful and angry. Is that what you are? About your father?" Diego was quiet for a long moment. "My father built an empire and taught me how to control it. He also lied about Sofia and let Raphael remain inside the organization for 21 years. I don't know which version matters more. Maybe they both do. Maybe." They cleaned up in silence. Julie washed dishes, while Diego dried them with the careful attention he gave everything, and the domesticity of it felt surreal. When they finished, Julie turned to find Diego watching her, with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked. "You're still wearing the necklace." Julie's hand went to the pendant automatically. "Should I not be?" "I don't know. After everything you learned today, I thought you might want distance from it." "It's the only piece of my mother I have left," Julie said quietly. "The only thing she gave me that was completely true. She wore this. Sofia wore it. They were both real." Diego stepped closer, not crowding, just closing the distance between them. "May I?" he asked, his hand moving toward the pendant. Julie nodded. He lifted it carefully, studying the 8-point star in the kitchen light. His fingers were warm against her collarbone. She used this to cut through a zip tie, he said quietly. The night she got me out. The clasp was sharp enough to saw through plastic if you had time and determination. She had both. She saved your life with it. Yes. Julie looked up at him and saw something in his expression that made her breath catch. Not calculation, not suspicion. Just Diego, looking at her like she was something unexpected and impossible, and real. Julie, he said quietly. She didn't let him finish. She kissed him. It was gentle, tentative, nothing like the dramatic moments in movies where people crash together with certainty. Julie wasn't certain about anything except that she wanted this, wanted him, despite every reasonable objection her brain was trying to provide. Diego went very still for half a second. Then his hand came up to cup her face, and he kissed her back with a kind of controlled intensity that made Julie's entire nervous system recalibrate. When they finally pulled apart, Diego's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. That wasn't strategic, he said. No. Good. Julie almost laughed. That's your response? Would you prefer something romantic? I don't know. I've never kissed someone while hiding from a conspiracy before. I don't have a framework. Neither do I. Somehow that made it better. They stood in the kitchen where Diego couldn't cook, and Julie had just learned her entire history was a carefully constructed lie, and chose each other anyway. Tomorrow they'd deal with Rafael. Tonight, they had this. It was enough. It was enough. Julie woke to voices in the next room. She'd fallen asleep on the sofa sometime after midnight, and now morning light filtered through unfamiliar curtains while Diego spoke to someone in Italian, his tone clipped and controlled in a way that suggested the conversation wasn't going well. She found him in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, his expression colder than she'd seen it since the night they met. He ended the call when he saw her. Problem? Julie asked. Rafael requested a meeting. He wants to discuss recent security concerns. Does he know about the box? If he didn't before, he does now. Nico was seen near the bank. Someone reported it to Rafael directly. Diego set the phone down with careful precision. He's asking why I've been investigating legacy accounts without informing senior advisors. Julie's stomach dropped. What did you tell him? Nothing yet. I wanted to confirm something first. He pulled up a document on his laptop and turned the screen toward her. Financial records, recent ones, showing transfers Julie didn't understand but could tell were significant. These payments, Diego said, pointing to highlighted entries, were made to an account registered under your name 2 weeks ago. I don't have that account. I know. Someone created it using your information and routed payments through it to make it appear you've been receiving money from my organization. Julie stared at the fabricated evidence. They're framing me. Yes, making it look like you approached me deliberately. Like the pizza delivery was planned. Who would believe that? Anyone who doesn't know you. Diego's jaw tightened. And several of my senior people are already asking questions about why I'm protecting a woman who appeared in my penthouse the same night someone tried to kill me. But you know it's fake. I do. That doesn't change what it looks like to everyone else. Julie sank into a chair, trying to process the fact that someone had constructed an entirely false financial history to make her look like a plant. Rafael, she said quietly. He's trying to isolate you, or force my hand. If enough people in the organization believe you're compromised, they'll expect me to turn you over for questioning. The clinical way Diego said questioning made Julie's skin crawl. What happens if you don't? She asked. They start wondering whether I've been compromised too. Julie looked at him. This man who'd pulled her out of gunfire and kissed her in a kitchen and was now explaining that protecting her might cost him everything. Then don't, she said. Don't protect me if it means losing your organization. That's not your decision. It should be. This is my life you're risking yours for. Diego's expression didn't change. I've made worse gambles. This isn't a gamble. This is—" Julie stopped. "I heard what your men were saying last night. What some of them wanted to do to me before you confirmed I was staying under your protection. I know what your world looks like, Diego. I can't ask you to choose me over it. You didn't ask. I chose. Why? Because I believe you. Because Sofia saved my life 21 years ago, and you're the only person who can tell me who she really was." He paused. "And because letting Raphael frame an innocent woman to protect himself would make me exactly the kind of man my father was afraid I'd become." Julie's throat tightened. "Your father? He told me once that the easiest way to lose yourself was to start sacrificing the right people for the wrong reasons." Diego's voice was quiet. "I didn't understand what he meant until now." Before Julie could respond, Diego's phone buzzed with a message. He read it, and something in his expression shifted. "What?" Julie asked. "Nico Serrano just entered my building. He's claiming he has information about the woman who's been staying in my penthouse." "Information about me?" "Yes. And Raphael personally vouched for him, which means this is coordinated." Diego stood. "I need to go back. Not alone. You're staying here. Like hell I am." Julie stood too. "If Nico's lying about me, I should be there to defend myself. You should be somewhere safe while I handle this." "By doing what? Trusting that the man who already framed me won't make things worse if I'm not there? By not giving him the opportunity to get near you again." Julie heard the logic beneath his words, but she also heard what he wasn't saying. That going back to his building meant walking into whatever trap Raphael had prepared. "You can't protect me by making decisions without me," she said carefully. "We had this conversation already." Diego's expression tightened. "This is different." "How?" "Because I need you alive more than I need you involved." The bluntness of it hit Julie harder than anything else he could have said. "Diego, stay here. Let me handle Raphael. When it's safe, I'll bring you back. And if it's not safe, then at least you'll be alive to be angry at me for it." He was already moving toward the door, already shifting into the cold, controlled version of himself that Julie was beginning to understand meant he was frightened. "Wait," she said. Diego stopped. Julie crossed to him, rose on her toes, and kissed him. Brief, fierce, a reminder that she was choosing this too. "Don't do anything stupid," she said. "That's not a promise I can make. Then come back so I can yell at you for it." Something that might have been a smile crossed his face. "I'll try." Then he was gone, and Julie was alone in a safe house with nothing to do except wait and hope that the man she was falling for didn't get himself killed trying to protect her. She pulled out her mother's letter and read it again, focusing on one line. Tell him that the person he trusted most was the one who betrayed him. Raphael. The man Diego had known since childhood. The man who'd tried to kill him once and was apparently trying again. Julie looked at the financial records Diego had left on the laptop, at the fabricated evidence designed to make her look guilty, and understood with cold clarity that Raphael wasn't just trying to frame her. He was trying to make Diego choose between believing her and believing the organization. And if Diego chose wrong, they'd both end up dead. Julie picked up her phone and made a decision that was probably stupid, but felt necessary. She started looking for the one piece of evidence Raphael couldn't have faked. The one person who could prove she'd been exactly where she said she was, the night everything started. Her manager. The pizza shop. Security footage. If she could prove the delivery was real, that someone else had entered the order using stolen credentials, it would at least establish that she hadn't orchestrated her own arrival at Diego's penthouse. It wouldn't clear her completely, but it might buy Diego enough time to expose Raphael before the organization decided she was the threat. Julie pulled up the pizza shop's number and started making calls. Outside, Chicago continued its ordinary morning. Inside the safe house, Julie Bennett stopped waiting to be protected and started protecting herself. Diego called 2 hours later. "Raphael wants a meeting," he said, his voice controlled in the specific way Julie had learned meant he was furious and choosing not to show it. "Tonight. The Treventi, one of my restaurants, closed for renovation. He says he wants to resolve this himself, face to face, before the organization decides anything about you. That sounds like a trap. It is a trap, which is why I'm bringing people he doesn't know I still trust." A pause. "I need the pizza shop's footage. Whatever you found. I have it. My manager pulled the order log. It shows the account was accessed from an IP address nowhere near my apartment, time-stamped an hour before I even clocked in. It proves I didn't set anything up. Send it to me. And Julie, stay at the safe house. You said we're partners now. I said I wouldn't lie to you. I didn't say I'd let you walk into a building where Raphael's already decided you're expendable." Julie gripped the phone tighter. "If this ends tonight, I want to be there when it does. I've spent 2 days learning who my mother really was. I'm not sitting on a sofa while you finish her story without me." The silence on the line stretched long enough that Julie thought he might simply hang up. "2 guards, Diego said finally. "You stay behind them. If I tell you to leave, you leave. No negotiation. Deal." The Trevent still smelled like fresh paint and sawdust, half its dining room stripped down to studs and plastic sheeting, the other half eerily intact, white tablecloths under construction lights, a single table set as though for a dinner service that would never happen. Raphael Moretti sat at the head of it, silver-haired and composed, a man who'd spent 30 years perfecting the art of looking harmless. Nico stood behind him. "Diego." Raphael rose, arms spread in a gesture that might have read as welcome from anyone else. "And Miss Bennett. I confess I didn't expect you'd bring her." "You framed her," Diego said. "I thought she deserved to watch you fail at it." Raphael's smile didn't waver. "Bold accusation for a man who hasn't presented evidence. I have Sophia's letter. I have the financial records she preserved for 21 years. I have a photograph with your ring in it, taken 3 days before you had my father's 15-year-old son kidnapped to cover your theft." Diego's voice never rose. "And I have banking records showing exactly who Julie's stolen account credentials actually traced back to. Your grandson's apartment, Raphael. He's 22, not particularly careful with his own name on shell accounts." Something shifted behind Raphael's composed expression, the first crack Julie had seen in it. "Sophia should have died with the rest of what she took," he said quietly, all pretense finally dropping away. "I made sure of that. I don't know how she survived, but I know her daughter is standing in front of me, holding proof I spent 2 decades burying." "Then you understand why you won't be leaving this building the way you came in," Diego said. Nico moved first. It happened fast. A gun clearing a jacket, Diego's guards already reacting, Julie's whole body going cold as the room erupted into motion. She dropped behind an overturned table on instinct, ears ringing with the first shot, and when she looked up, Diego was down. Not dead. She registered that in the same half-second she registered the blood spreading dark across his shoulder, his breathing already going shallow and wrong in a way she recognized instantly, the same compromised rhythm Marcos had carried 2 nights earlier. Diego. She was moving before conscious thought caught up, ignoring the gunfire still cracking somewhere behind her, dropping to her knees beside him. "Stay with me. Look at me. Julie." His voice was strained, his hand finding her wrist. "Don't talk. Save your air." She pressed her palm hard against the wound, exactly as her training had taught her, exactly as she'd done for a stranger 2 nights ago in a hallway that had changed her entire life. "You're going to be fine. I need you to keep breathing slow, not fast, slow." Somewhere beyond them, the gunfire stopped. She heard Raphael's voice, no longer composed, no longer calm, desperate now, admitting things Julie only half-registered through the roar of her own pulse, the shape of a confession finally spoken aloud after 21 years of careful silence. Diego's men moved him away, and Julie didn't watch what happened next. She kept her hands pressed against Diego's shoulder, counting his breaths, refusing to let herself think about anything except keeping him alive. When she finally looked up, Raphael was gone, led away by two men whose faces told her exactly what kind of custody he was entering. "Are you going to kill him?" she asked later, once paramedics had stabilized Diego enough to move, once the adrenaline had finally started to drain from her hands. Diego looked at her, pale, exhausted, but entirely honest. "Yes." Julie held his gaze for a long moment, understanding settling over her with a weight she hadn't fully prepared for. Not fear of him, exactly, but the sharp, sudden clarity of finally seeing, without any softening, exactly what loving Diego Esposito actually meant. "I need to think," she said quietly. Diego didn't argue. He simply nodded and let her go. Julie went back to her ordinary life, the way you step back into cold water. Slowly, breath held, bracing for the shock that never quite came. Her apartment had been repaired, courtesy of an anonymous payment she chose not to ask about. Her manager gave her the same shift schedule, minus the mandatory unpaid meetings. Her respiratory therapy program welcomed her back with a stack of missed coursework and zero questions about why she'd disappeared for a week. Diego didn't call. He'd told her, discharged from a hospital he'd insisted on leaving after 18 hours against every medical recommendation, that he understood she needed distance. He'd arranged quiet protection outside her building and told her plainly it was there, then told her just as plainly she could refuse it. She didn't refuse it. She also didn't call him. For 3 weeks, Julie delivered pizza, studied lung capacity charts, and sat on the bench by the lake, where she used to bring Claire in the last good months, back when her mother could still walk the path without stopping to catch her breath. She missed him. That surprised her more than anything else. Not the danger, not the penthouse, or the safe house, or the terrifying efficiency of men who followed Diego's orders without question. She missed the specific quiet of him, the dry, almost invisible humor, the way he listened, like her words actually mattered, the steadiness of him sitting beside her while she cried over a mother she'd never fully known. Loving ordinary life didn't mean she'd stopped loving him. They were, she'd finally decided, two entirely separate facts. She called him on a Tuesday. "The lake," she said, when he answered on the first ring. "The bench near the boathouse. Tomorrow, 6. I'll be there." He arrived exactly on time, wearing a coat that cost more than her rent, looking healthier than the last time she'd seen him, though she noted the careful way he still favored his shoulder. "You kept the necklace," he said, sitting beside her. "It's mine." Julie's hand went to the pendant automatically. "I spent 3 weeks thinking, finding out who my mother used to be, changed who she actually was to me. And it didn't. She was Sophia and Claire, and she was still entirely my mother, the whole time." Julie closed her fingers around the star. "And finding out who you really are doesn't mean I get to pretend you're somebody else either." Diego was quiet for a moment. "I'm not going to become someone different, Julie. There will always be things you can't be part of, decisions I make that you won't agree with." "I know." She met his eyes steadily. "So, let's be clear about what this actually is. My work stays mine. I don't carry messages. I don't hide evidence. I don't become part of your world, and you don't lie to me for my own protection ever again." "Agreed. Anything else?" Julie considered it. "If you ever send armed men into my pizza shop, they tip." Something close to a real smile crossed his face. "Noted." They sat together as the sun dropped low over the water, and for the first time since a stranger's penthouse door had upended her entire life, Julie let herself simply exist in a moment, without bracing for the next disaster. 6 months later, Julie passed her certification exam with a score that made her instructor ask, twice, whether she'd considered teaching. She still helped at the pizza shop on weekends, mostly because her manager begged and because some habits felt worth keeping. On the 1-year anniversary of the worst delivery of her life, she showed up at Diego's penthouse, carrying a box. He opened the door. "Did I order that?" "No. You've become careless." I'm taking a professional risk. He looked at the box, then at her, then opened it. Pineapple. Diego's expression didn't move for a long moment. I wanted to know if love was really unconditional, Julie said. He closed the door in her face. A beat passed. The door opened again. He took the pizza. You have 5 seconds. Julie laughed and walked past him into the penthouse that had once terrified her, past the necklace's reflection catching the light in the hallway mirror. The same star that had once made a mafia boss go still with recognition, now simply hers, resting against her collarbone in a home she'd chosen twice. A pizza delivery. A necklace her mother never explained. And a truth, 21 years in the making. If Julie and Diego's story kept you hooked till the very end, hit subscribe for more like this. Comment where you're watching from tonight. And type pineapple below if that ending got you.